Forward to this one for quite some time. I have with us here an Army veteran, Chris, and he's got a fantastic channel out there called Christopher Chaos. You might have seen his work already. If not, you're definitely going to want to because you're going to learn all about his service and what he's doing for the veteran community as well. So, Chris, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's cool.
Yeah, this is real fun. I've been watching your content for so long, and I want to get into that, and I want to talk a little bit about your audience because it's a wide range, and I love everything you're doing. But to get started, what I like to do is just kind of what I like to sometimes say, get the origin story, right?
Mhm.
I'd like to know what you, as an individual, what were you thinking? I mean, why did you join the service? What was the circumstances? And specifically, I'm curious about the branch you chose and
Yeah.
the job. How did that all come about?
Yeah, I've actually told this story even on my YouTube channel too, but for your audience, I'll definitely kind of summarize it, into the kind of the story. But it was, I was in high school and I really wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life and what my kind of future was. At the time, I was really interested in auto mechanics, and I wanted to be a working in the garage at NASCAR. At the time I was into NASCAR. I don't really follow it anymore, but at the time I was really heavily into NASCAR and I liked the racing, and I thought it'd be cool to work in the garage to rebuild the engines and do all that stuff. And I couldn't really afford to go to college to do that. So my plan was like, hey, I'll join at the time I was going to join the Air Force, do automotive and then go to college afterwards. The Air Force recruiter was not as persistent as the Army recruiter was. So I didn't hear a whole lot from the Air Force recruiter much, but I was hearing a lot from the Army recruiter. So I ended up just saying, screw it, I guess I'll just do the Army because, it probably makes better sense anyways, because they have wheeled vehicles and, more of that kind of, engine stuff compared to aircrafts, on the Air Force side, even though the Air Force does have wheeled vehicles too. But they're a little bit more persistent, so I kind of went with that route. And so I wanted to do automotive in the Army for 4 years, get out, and then go to school, and then hopefully try to eventually land a job at NASCAR. Well, it ended up being I didn't qualify for automotive to be a mechanic because it turned out I had like a red-green color blind.
Oh,
And so they were like, oh, well, you can't do this job because you have color blind. I was like, okay, well, what can I do? Then they were going to try to offer me bath and laundry specialist, or tent repair. I didn't want to do either of those two. I was like, I don't really want to do any of those two. They kept trying to talk me into it, and I told them, let me go home and think about it, which I was really going to just say, screw you guys, I'm moving on in my life and doing something else. And then they, after a while of sitting at home, and maybe it was only probably a few days, but then I was like, okay, maybe I'll just suck it up and I'll just do this bath and laundry specialist thing and get out and go to college. And so I told them that, and then I went back, and they were like, "Oh, well, now you don't qualify for that anymore because it's not available." I don't know why. So I had to sit there in the waiting room for a little bit, and then they came back out, and they were like, "Hey, you can do 88 mic," and I didn't know what 88 mic was. I didn't know what any of the MOSs were because internet wasn't very popular at that time to be able to search that stuff and be able to get up to speed on what everything was. So they had to explain it to me, and I was like, all right, I can do that. I guess why not? I'll do that for 4 years and get out. And so I ended up doing that and going to the Army in 4 years turned into almost 11 though,
yeah.
because of a ton of different circumstances and everything else like that just ended up having me stay in the Army longer than I intended to. And probably even in the first year or two of being in the Army, I lost interest in automotive anyway. So that wasn't even the plan anymore to get out and go to school for automotive and try to be at NASCAR and all that stuff. So just a long series of things that just led from one thing to another.
That's awesome. That sounds like a stereotypical, well, used to be a stereotypical recruiting narrative. Here's a job for you, but now here's another job. Here's another job.
Mm. Yeah, the funny thing was too is while I'm at MEPS, when they were trying to talk me into being a bath and laundry specialist, they're like, let's put you on the phone. My recruiter's like, let me put you on the phone with somebody I know who's in that job, and he explained it all to you. And then some guy's telling me about, oh yeah, it's really easy. You got a lot of off time to work on college and everything. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I bet you this isn't even somebody in the bath and laundry specialist, probably just some other random person he knows. Later, I found out that was true because the guy who was my Army recruiter, I ended up working with him in the civilian side afterwards. And so I found out that yeah, he told me, he's like, yeah, it was just another recruiter.
Oh my God. Oh, I'll tell you, the recruiters
Yep.
are getting a bad rap for that one. Oh boy.
Yeah. Not all are like
That's
that, but
funny.
some trying trying to meet those quotas, trying to meet those numbers and everything.
Yeah.
So
Hey, the army needs bodies. We need people. So
yeah.
can't fault them for that. That's really something. So 11 years then. I didn't realize you did that much. So I know you traveled a bit. I've been watching your stuff. I kind of feel like I have some spoilers here. So but for our listening audience, what's some of the duty stations and traveling that you did? Because I think people are surprised that, even in times where we're not necessarily in a lot of global conflicts, there's still a lot of travel that the military folks do. So what's some of the bases and frequent flyer miles you ranked up there?
Yeah, no, my first duty station was in Kansas, so I was at Fort Riley, outside of initial training, because then like initial training, I was at Fort Benning, which is now known as Fort Moore. And then for my schooling, I went to Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri. But those were kind of just short, times. You didn't really get to experience the area very well. You're just there for training. And then Fort Riley, Kansas, I was there for 2 years. Then I went to Korea, and I was stationed in Korea along the JSA, which is right along the DMZ on the border. And then I did a lot of traveling throughout Korea to see the sights and everything. I did definitely tourist stuff to definitely check out all the cool things. And then after Korea, I went to Colorado, to Fort Carson. And then while in Fort Carson, I ended up deploying to Iraq twice. The first time was to the northern area of Iraq, closer to Mosul. It was a town called Talafar. And it's closer to Mosul kind of area, maybe about 2 or 3 hours, maybe south of Mosul or something like that. And then the second time was to Baghdad. And so I was in Baghdad for that, and then came back to Colorado, and then a few training rotations to the National Training Center in California here and there, and all that kind of fun stuff.
Oh
So
yeah,
a few stuff, but
good times. Yeah, we shared a few of those stops. It sounded like together. That's fun.
yeah.
So that's awesome. And I always ask. I'm always curious about everyone's um the takeaways, the lifelong takeaways. So like, was there ever a particular, maybe a leader you had, or just a fellow troop that taught you a lesson that is something that's always kind of proven to be true over time that you kind of even rely on from time to time?
Kind of, yeah. I remember probably my favorite squad leader I ever had. I was in Korea, and probably some of the stuff like technically isn't necessarily like approved by the army, or like condoned practice by the army, but he kind of made it feel like I was his friend, right? And at the time I was just an E4. I was a specialist, he was an E5, he was a sergeant. And he would just talk to you, hang out. He even showed me around in Korea a little bit here and there. And like technically, yeah, you're not supposed to do that because he's an NCO and I'm lower enlisted at the time and everything. But in the end, I feel like it taught me that like it was kind of like more responsibility for me to not let him down, because now he's my friend, or he's a guy that I like. Even so, I mean, not necessarily a friend because it's not like we hung out all the time, but a person that I like. And so now it's different. It's a different relationship compared to a boss type of thing. Now it's somebody that you're trying to do well because you don't want to let this person down. You don't want them to think negatively of you and everything, and you want them to still be cool with you, I guess, kind of a thing. And so I kind of always remembered that. I always remembered that yes, you do need to be strict on certain things and everything, but at the same time you need to kind of build that bond with people, not just as a bond as a leader or a bond as like a supervisor or whatever to somebody, but bond as someone that they can connect to, so that way they're more kind of focused on not letting you down. Otherwise, if you're just some boss that's hey, I got to make sure you do this so I can collect a paycheck and you can collect a paycheck, then it's not as important to get the task done. I mean, yeah, you get the task done so you don't get fired, hopefully, or get in trouble or whatever.
Right.
But it doesn't have the same kind of, I don't think the same kind of takeaway as like someone that you're cool with that you don't want to let down. And so that's kind of something I always kind of took away from that.
Yeah, relationships over rank. That's a good lesson. That's good. I like that. So 11 years is kind of like an odd year. It's kind of what I did too. An odd year out. So I assume there was something there where you may have re-enlisted and then you started to make the change. You kind of had a thought, okay, it's time to serve my time. I'm gonna go do something else. What was that phase like, and how was your transition out of the service initially? How did that go for you?
It was a little bit kind of sketchy. You don't know what to expect and what to do. I just knew I didn't want to do the army anymore. I was ready to kind of move on to a different chapter and do some different things. The main thing, like I remember about like the whole transition how to get in the army was rough because of my position. I was the ammunition NCOIC, so I was in charge of all the ammunition and like the scheduling and pickup and drop off and all the storage and all sorts of stuff with ammo. And so we had a national training center, deployment or rotation coming up. And I had a guy who was I was the section sergeant, and I had a couple NCOs under me that were my team leaders. And I had one team leader that he was going to be stepping up to take over my position when I left. They weren't too confident, I guess, of him taking over kind of the position. There's a lot of paperwork that still goes involved with this stuff that, if you don't get it right, then you get kicked back and you have to do it again and all sorts of crazy stuff that the paperwork's not straight. Then it definitely, messes stuff up. But with this rotation coming up, I was supposed to stay behind and start getting ready to get out of the army and do all of the physicals and, all the other stuff to kind of get ready in classes you're supposed to do to help kind of set you up for leaving. And because of this rotation, they were like, no, we really need you to go. And we don't feel like so-and-so is going to be, qualified enough to be able to take over your job just yet. And this is a big kind of deal with NTC. And so we need you to go. And so I got stuck having to go and then came back and I basically had a month left to get everything done.
Oh, wow.
And it was in December. So a lot of things are already kind of, towards Christmas shutting down and half day schedules and all this stuff. So it was a challenge to try to get everything done in that time frame. And even a lot of people were like, oh, wow, you don't have much time. You're just now starting. It's like, yeah, I'm just now starting. I didn't get a choice on this and kind of got stuck having to do it. So it was a little bit rough. And like one of the big things that I always remember that was kind of a big bummer was that, a lot of people usually get like maybe an award when they get out of the army. You get an ETS award or whatever. And at that time when I was getting out, it wasn't required for them to have the award. They just had to have a draft of it, because now the standard is they either have to have an award or some kind of counseling as far as why they feel the soldier doesn't deserve an award when they get out. And so at that time it was just a draft or a counseling saying they weren't getting one. So they did a draft for me, but they were also getting ready to turn around and go to GRTC like in a few months or whatever. So they're pretty busy with that. And I had a really horrible platoon sergeant at that time. I even have a video on that, talking about the worst platoon sergeant I ever had. But that platoon sergeant was not staying on top of stuff. And I ended up getting out and didn't get an award. They put me in for one, but I think it was all they needed was the draft. And then once I left, they're like, he's gone already. We don't need to keep on following up with this award. No, it doesn't matter anymore. So I never got an award. So that was a little bit of a kind of a rough transition trying to get out, though.
Yeah. Oh, that's a riot. And then how did this fantastic channel, and again, folks, it's Christopher Chaos is the channel. You can't miss him. You go on YouTube, he's all over the place. Superstar there. But how did that come about? I mean, was it just off the top of the head? Was there a plan, or you just started to roll with it?
It kind of just transitioned over time. I mean, I've been doing YouTube since YouTube was YouTube. I mean, it wasn't doing army stuff though, but like I was doing like, fun videos with some friends. And then I started getting into doing vlogging. So I would do some vlogs. I was doing music videos for local bands and doing some like other kind of concert footage for local bands in the area. And then the Christopher Chaos channel, I think originally was like kind of doing creative video stuff, because I developed like an interest in making videos while I was in Korea. I'd made like a little fun video to kind of show like what the base looked like in Korea that I was at, to be able to show my family. And I had fun like making it and editing it together. And so I started making more after that. So when I kind of started, when YouTube kind of came around, I finally had a place to actually show that creativity. I was kind of able to do it a little bit before that, because I think a little bit before YouTube, you had MySpace, and MySpace would let you put videos on MySpace.
Yeah.
And so I would put videos on there a little bit. But it was music videos and a little bit of like random creative stuff and everything like that. But then the Christopher Chaos channel was kind of like some of the creative videos. And then I did a series that was military related, where it was like my transition out of the army. So it was like a vlog style though. And so it was called Soldier to Civilian. And that stuff's still actually on the channel still too. It's just really far back. But I have like the whole transition process of me going to NTC and doing all the other stuff I had to do. And then the clearing process to clear the army. And after I got out of the army, then I was still trying to do a little bit of the vlog stuff, a little bit of the creative video stuff to teach people how to do video stuff. Channel wasn't doing anything great. I think I had maybe 200 subscribers, something like that, maybe 300 subscribers, not much. my videos, I'd be, excited when I'd get 20 views on a video, be like, oh, this video's doing good. It got 20 views. So I'd be pretty excited about that. And then I decided to like mix things up. And I was like, okay, let's mix stuff up. It's not completely working very well. And I've been doing this for a really long time. So let's change it up a little bit. And I was like, let's do Military Mondays. So I kind of had it where I was doing some vlogs and some creative stuff. And then like on Mondays, I was going to do something that was dedicated to like something about the Army. And so the first video I did, which later ended up being the successful video, was about rank. And so it was talking about like, enlisted rank and everything and what the different ranks were going up and everything. And that video actually didn't do very good at the beginning. It did, like I said, 10, 20 views. And then I continued doing my whole thing, and I was doing a few other random Military Monday videos. And then out of nowhere, it was like 3 months, maybe 4 months after I did that rank video, all of a sudden started getting really recommended. I don't know what triggered it or what happened, but 3 months into later, I just all of a sudden started getting all these alerts about new subscriber, and then looking at my views, and all of a sudden the views went up like crazy on that video. And so I was like, well, let's try out doing more military stuff. So then I kind of did a few more military stuff, and then because of the success of that rank video, other videos started doing pretty good with Army stuff. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm just going to do Army stuff from now on. And that seems to work. And I have enough knowledge about it, and I still enjoy making content about that topic. So I'll do that. And so I just kind of stuck with that, and that ended up working.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, you cover so many things, and it's your audience, and this is what I wanted to get into with you, because I don't know if I'm correct, but I'm going to assume that over time, at least, you've seen different types of audience. There's probably people that are in the military that love and chat with you and comment. There's probably people considering being in the military. And there's probably a bunch of veterans just kind of reminiscing and enjoying all the banter because you do it in such you're number one, it's educational. Number two, you have humor, like your style and the production quality is outstanding. I know I'm an AM radio fella, but we have a little bit of social media stuff out there. And I know what it takes to do our little tiny thing. And what you do is, I mean, I can see how hard you work in it. So the quality's there. It's educating folks on the military. And I'm just curious, am I spot on with like, are you getting feedback from all of those types of folks?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, there'll be people that are still in high school that want to join, and they're curious about how the process works and how this works. There's people that are in the Army that, just curious about, hey, I want to change this up or change that up. And, how does that work if I want to do that? And, I get that information. And then just veterans. The only thing that kind of gets annoying with some of the veteran community people is I'll get some of the people that are like really old school veterans that like from like the 70s or something like that. And they think that the Army is still the way that it was back then. And so they'll be like, that's not true. That's not how it works in the Army. And it's like, well, that's probably how it worked in the 70s, maybe even the early 80s, but that's not how it works today. I'm sorry. And so that gets a little bit annoying. But then there's some people that definitely do understand, like, okay, wow, the Army's changed. It's not the way it was, type of thing. But yeah, there's definitely some people that, of all those kind of areas, I try to give a good mix of both. I feel like a lot of my content probably is more geared towards people that are not in the Army yet and wanting to join, but I try to have a good mix. That way they don't just outgrow essentially my channel and like, okay, well, this was useful when I was wanting to join the Army, but now that I'm in the Army, it's not useful to me anymore. So I still try to provide a lot of that stuff too, hopefully. And it's a little bit harder sometimes to try to get good content for that, because it's easier to probably find content to make for people that don't know anything about the Army compared to someone who is already in the Army. But one of the funny things is to see is like some of the people in the comments sometimes is that they'll talk about how they watched my channel when they were in high school or before they joined. They've now done with their contract and out of the Army, and they've watched me through their whole Army career. Maybe it was only like a 4-year career, right? And so they did 4 years in the Army, got out, and they're like still watching me and stuff like that. And it's like, man, it's crazy. And then I'll even run into people too, because I wish this was my full-time job of making these videos, but it's not. My full-time job is as an instructor on Fort Carson here for the Army and stuff like that. Not for the Army, but kind of for the soldiers, but as a contractor, but teaching systems. And so I'll get, here and there, I'll get like soldiers in my class that'll recognize me from my videos, and they'll be like, oh man, you're the reason why I chose Fort Carson because how much you talked about Fort Carson, or, oh, you're the reason why I joined the Army. And that's a little bit scary. I tell people, whoa. Don't put all that pressure on me. I don't want the Army to be horrible. And now I'm the person you come after because you're like, Christopher Chaos was the reason why I joined the Army, and now it's horrible and I hate the Army. It ruined my life. You ruined my life, Christopher Chaos. So But it's definitely pretty crazy, these people that'll be saying that kind of thing, like, oh yeah, I watched all your videos. You're the reason why I ended up joining the army. I was trying to, decide if I want to join this or that or do this or that. And you're the one that helped me kind of make that decision. So it feels like a lot of pressure. It's sketchy. It's scary.
Well, you're not, yeah, but it's not like you're the recruiter getting
Yeah.
someone to pretend to be a service member explaining how easy it is.
Yeah.
You're telling the good, the bad, the ugly. You're telling the truth, and
Yeah.
that to me is a style of, I mean, heck, the military should be looking at these types of ideas. This is this is this is actually educating people on what a day-to-day life really is, in any scenario. You talk about MOSs a lot. That's
Mm,
that, that's what I started watching myself, is that 88 Mike School and all these other things I was familiar with. It was fun for me to, I guess, reminisce.
yeah.
But from a recruiting standpoint, I mean, the military, that this is the way to go. You really show an honest example. You do it with style and humor. And I would think that'd be wild to have a class where someone's in there going, "Oh, I'm here because of you."
Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah.
wild. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I even try to like even mention that in my videos sometimes, occasionally here and there when it comes about, to try to let people know like, hey, I don't benefit at all if you join the army or don't join the army. It doesn't matter to me. My benefit is you being here watching my video.
Right.
And so I try to tell people like, hey, I'm going to give you the honest truth. Sometimes the army is great, sometimes the army is horrible.
Yeah.
And it's tough to get through the day, depending on what's going on. But I try to be that transparent. That way I'm not like trying to be like a recruiter and trying to be like, everything's great, everything's amazing. You're going to cook s'mores by the fire, hot cocoa, and everything. And drill sergeants will tuck you in at night and everything and give you a kiss on the forehead. So I try to, make sure, hey, I'm not going to try to say the Army's the greatest. For some people, it serves a good point and it serves a good purpose. For others, it's horrible, and it would not be a good decision for you to join the military, because the military isn't for you or the Army isn't for you. So try to make sure that I'm clear on this. I benefit from nothing of you joining or not joining. I just want to entertain you and watch my video and then learn something out of it.
Yeah, you do a great job with it. And yeah, in fact,
Thanks.
one of your more recent videos I just watched just recently was the army is not for you. You had all
Mm,
these things laid
yeah.
out of like, if you don't like discipline, you don't like waking
Yeah.
up.
And hey, maybe in the end it helps, because maybe some, squad leader out there won't end up having this private that's disgruntled and hating the army life because they watched my video and be like, maybe I'm rushing into things. Maybe I shouldn't join the army. Maybe I should go to school and do something else. Maybe the army isn't for me, type of thing. And now I maybe saved some hassle from some squad leader who's going to have to write a bunch of counseling statements on a soldier that's being disgruntled, and I just saved you. You can thank me later.
Well, to add to that, you might have a bad squad leader that watches
Yeah.
and goes, "Oh, I got to check myself and correct what I'm doing. I'm 8 up." That was another
Yeah.
one of my favorite videos you did. 8 up.
Yeah. Yeah. I did some slang words and all sorts of things to try to get people to understand all the slang of the army, because that's definitely a whole lingo itself sometimes.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. So, folks, you definitely want to check this out. It's really fun. Subscribe, watch the stuff. You got some awesome merchandise on there too. I've seen quite a
Thanks.
few things there. So, yeah, it's Christopher Chaos. You cannot miss it. He's all over the place. Just find his channel, subscribe, and let me ask you this, because this is always fun for me too. I always ask people. There's no way you could have predicted how your military career went. There's no way you could have predicted what you're doing now, and the
Mm,
fact that you're still teaching troops. I mean, that's awesome. I
yeah.
love the fact that as a I won't say civilian. I know that's a great term, but we're veterans, right? It's a whole different category. But the fact that you went through all these interesting stages that you could never have predicted. If you had a way now to like time travel and talk to your younger self before you joined, and you just had like a minute with your younger self, what would you communicate with young Chris out there? What would you say?
So first one would be buy Bitcoin. That'd be definitely a thing. But then don't touch it until I get to my age now, so that way I can cash it out. But I don't know. A lot of it, I kind of went through my army career just expecting that I was going to get out. Right, I was going to get out after these 4 years. 4 years came, or 3 years really, because that's usually when your time comes to option for re-enlist or decide to get out. But this time would come, and then it's like, oh well, I can't really get out now, so I guess I'm going to re-enlist. And then it was always just thinking about the next end of that contract and not really thinking about long term. And I probably should have still kind of like focused on some of like my progression, because some of my progression I think was kind of slow because of that. Because I was like, oh, I'm not going to bother with this because I'm getting out in 2 years and 3 years, kind of a thing. And then it turned out 4 more years later, and this kind of a thing where maybe if I would have put in the effort, could have progressed a little bit quicker, a little bit better, maybe had a little bit better experiences with certain kind of circumstances and stuff like that. So I probably would have said, hey, you're going to be stuck for a little bit. I know you wanted to get out after 4 years, but you're going to be stuck for 11. So you might as well go ahead and put in the effort to progress a little bit faster than you're doing, and not just to stay so focused on 2 more years, 1 more year. No, it's going to be a little bit more, buddy.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well said, my friend. Well, this has been a real treat for me. I've really enjoyed. I know you're super busy, obviously, but I appreciate the time. This is fun, and I think our
Yeah.
listeners will appreciate this. So, folks, you definitely want to check him out online. If you're having trouble, we have his bio and link on our site as well. But Christopher Chaos, go to YouTube, subscribe, follow, support him, and I just love what you're doing. I want you to keep it up, and I'd like to check in with you. And this is where you are now. Imagine where
Mm.
things are going to be, 5, 10 years out.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, many more subscribers and doing this full time by then or something. I don't know. Who
Yeah,
knows?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Well, in your honor, as we take a break here, I am going to play a fun song that I think is just right up your alley. So here's a fun song by the U.S. Army Band, and good humor, just like Chris here. So thank you so much, and obviously thank you for serving our country and continuing to serve. That's fantastic. So
Yeah. Thank you.
yep. All right, folks, enjoy this song in Chris's honor. Stand by.